Hello and welcome to another live demonstration. As part of the Back to Basics series, I like to introduce you to new products, brushes, paper, whatever it may be. So I want to talk to you about the Da Vinci Casaneo range. So a lot of people are love the feel of natural hair, but don't like to use natural hair. And then they're looking for a brush that will simulate that softness, that spring that they have. And a synthetic brush doesn't always offer that because they're a little bit stiffer and they don't hold the water the same way. But Da Vinci have worked really hard and brought out the Casaneo range, which is a synthetic brush, totally synthetic, but the hairs have been designed to replicate the natural hair feel. So they hold plenty of water and they have a really nice, soft feel to them. So we'll have a look at those at the moment. I want to talk to you about this set. It's the travel set, and you can see what really lovely little sharp points these are making. And I want to talk to you about the brush. So this is the size 8, and you have a 4 and a 2 in the range. They feel very light to work with. That's what I did notice about them. Very nice and light, and I think their handle is supposed to look like horn, but it's totally made out of a synthetic material. It's plastic. The hairs are really nice and soft, and I'll do a little demo to show you that. And they've put a lot of work into getting these hairs to replicate that natural hair brush in a synthetic range. So they come with a lid. Let me move those away. And the lid has a hole in the top. And that hole is really actually very important. The brush, once you've used it, actually needs to be put away damp. Now, normally you wouldn't do this with a brush because you don't want to cover up a damp brush because it will create mold, and it's not a good idea to do that. But with travel brushes, and especially ones which have a hole in the end of the lid, you have to put them away wet. If they were dry and being a synthetic but a natural feel brush, they tend to be a little bushy. And then you have the risk of trapping hairs in the lid. So you shouldn't ever put a lid on a dry brush. You know those little plastic travel tubes that sometimes come on some brushes? You shouldn't actually replace them. They're just to go out from the supplier and to go out for travel. You shouldn't really put those back onto a dry brush because you can trap hairs, and often you do. But travel brushes like these have been designed to allow you to be able to put a lid on while a still wet brush, because you're on the move. You're out there in the field. You don't have to stand there and I need to dry my brush before I can put it away. You want to just be able to tidy up and go. So simply screw on. So that keeps it nice and tight, and the hole allows air to get through and allows that brush to dry naturally without damaging the hairs. So I'm going to use one brush, even though I do like the tiny little brushes, which are great for on the move. I just keeping it simple as always. And again, 3 colours. This time I'm using indigo for my blue, which is a really grey, deep grey blue. It's a lovely colour, you'll see. A little bit of cadmium red and a bit of lemon yellow. Again, 3 colours, just to keep it simple. First thing I'm going to do is give you an idea of how soft this brush is. So just load up my brush, and you can see, even from me touching it, how soft it is, how springy it is. Look how easy it is to create a swatch. Now, if you did that with a synthetic, it would have dried a lot sooner because it hasn't got the ability to hold as much water. Whereas with this, it has some really wonderful pigment and water holding abilities, which you're looking for in a natural hair. There you go. Again, just see the spring in it. Keeps the point. If you keep turning your brush, that's a tip when using a brush. keep turning it as you're using it, and that will keep the point nice and sharp. And just see how soft. It's difficult to explain because I can feel how soft it is, and I can feel how much it's holding. But I hope you can see a little bit from that swatch I've just done. So what I'll do is I'll do a demo, because I think that helps you see a little bit more clearly how the brush can be used. So again, keeping it simple, and apparently I say it a lot, let the material work for you. I'm just loading up my brush, damping it off a little bit because I want some control. I'm going to start on the head. I'm going to start underneath because I want to push colour upwards. Now this is a king penguin, which is the second biggest penguin after the emperor penguin, and apparently, from what I've read, is it has the longest beak of all the penguins. So let's make sure we show that. And the chicks are hatched and incubated in the feet of the males usually. So, and they're a wonderful shape. So I just want to look. So this bit of the head is actually quite dark, and I've got quite, because it's simulating a natural hair, it's holding a lot of pigment. So I'm just having to dab it off just to release a little bit of the colour, because I want to start to, I've only got a small area, so now I want to start to bring this colour up and start to add some more tonal values. I'll leave the eye this time because I want to make sure that goes on really dark. And for me, I don't always take a huge amount of time. I like to get it on and build it up very quickly. But I want to show you that with this brush, the full possibilities of how you can use it. So here comes round darker. So pick up a little bit more colour. And I'm only picking up a very small amount of colour because the brush is ensuring that it's being transferred to the paper, and all the colour you've picked up on your brush is being transferred, really making it go a long way, what I'm trying to say. So now plenty of water. I want to just put very light. You can see there on the back of the penguin it's quite grey. And I'm using quite a strong colour, so definitely making sure. You can always add to colour, so it is better to make it a lot lighter than you want, because you can always strengthen. It's much, much harder to lighten something. So dark edge here, and the wings has a dark edge. I'm just looking at the shapes that the patterns on the bird makes, and you'll get individual patterns. So these patterns under the wing are unique to this bird. The main characteristics are similar, but you'll get some little patches which are just for that bird. Okay, so dark here. So as I'm working, I'm looking at tonal values, I'm looking at where my dark areas are. And because I know I'm working in watercolour, I know to get my light colours, I can move the colour from the page rather than having to build up. Some people will build up light tones first and then work that way. But what I want to do, because I know this is a strong colour, I want to move the colour on the page. There's no right or wrong way of working with this. It's just how it works for you. Some ways may not work for the techniques you're using, and sometimes you get some nice, interesting marks that you didn't expect. So I'm just constantly looking at where I want my colour to be. And you can see how very few times I'm actually picking up the colour because it's holding it all in this brush. Feet. Well, it has quite big, bulky feet, which keep the chick warm and the egg while it's incubating, and long claws. Again, I just like to know a little bit of what I'm painting, the subject. It just adds some interest. Long feet. This one goes behind. Quite chunky little legs. I think the colours, which we're going to do in a minute, are just really make this penguin ping. They're not just black and white. They're all shades of grey or blue, or I can see purples in the grey bits. So you can have a lot of fun and paint a green penguin. It doesn't matter. This is what you are painting. And as long as it looks like a penguin, you know, and that's what you wanted her to achieve, that's absolutely fine. I just need to look at the gap on this leg. Go. One of the darkest areas would be here, because this is where a dark foot is touching the ground. So I just want to show that. I'm going to be very easy with the background because they actually, you'll probably see them on snow, so I'll make that work for me. This may look a little bit of a mess at the moment. What I can do is, once it dries, I come back into it. And this is where I actually may use the softer brush. For me, I'm finding this very soft. It's great to put on these lovely tones and brings out these lovely shades, and allows you to do a lot of colour. But for me, when I like to just finish with a sharp edge, so I might drop down to a smaller brush. So let's just drop some colour on there. So he's white under here, and I don't want to lose that, but I need to add some shadow. So this is just clean water. I'm just bringing up the colour, let it run. Maybe a little bit more, because I want to make sure you can see that this, I was going to say arm then, wing really, or I'm not sure what a penguin's wing. I was going to say flipper, because it's not a flying bird. But I just want to show that this is the underside. So I've got to look at this bit here. Don't want to overwork. I don't want you to just keep watching me going over areas. So I'm going to move on quite quickly. Okay. So I'm just adding some strength there now. Just adding some more strength here, just to push me forward a little bit. So I'll keep fiddling and keep going over areas that actually probably already done.
Google seems to think that there should be flippers.
Flippers.
Flippers, because they're used for swimming rather than
Yeah,
flying.
flight. So that I would have called them a flipper as well. But see, always learning. Dark under the underside of the flipper. Now we've determined what they are. Shadow. Okay. So I'm with this, all one colour at the moment. I've not changed. With this one colour, I'm just going to bring out some of the texture of the belly feathers using the tip.
Getting some nice comments about the brushes and especially your penguin.
Thank you. Yeah, the brushes are really nice. like I say, natural hair brushes, you know, some people are concerned about using them, but these are totally synthetic. But for me, I can really feel the difference, the softness that they're giving. So let's make him a little bit round. Use the paper to create that texture. This looks a bit hard. I think I've overdone it a little bit, so let's break it up a bit more. Tail behind here needs to be dark because it's behind. And I'll leave the feet till last because I want to put some colour on now. I think I'm going to drop into a small brush. Normally I won't. I tend to use one brush, but that's usually a synthetic brush, and they're a lot stiffer hair, which allows me to, you know, create the detail with just quite a big brush. But these are much softer. Great for when I finish. I'll do a wet in wet for background, and you can really see then that's when they come into their element, that lovely soft feel. So I've had to drop down a brush for a little bit more detail. So quickly detail on here, because it's taking a little longer than I thought, because I seem to keep thinking about it a little bit more. Not a problem. Okay, dark behind. Pick up some colour. And I'm not overly worrying about tiny detail because, to be fair, you're not going to see it. Just looking at tone, still only use the one colour. And I could leave it at that. But what really excites me is this, the lovely colour they've got up here. So into the eye, while I've got the dark colour. Maybe some more on here. Soften, bring round. Okay, that's it. I think that's fine for the darkness. Actually, I've put quite a bit of paint in that eye, so it's standing proud. So, onto the colour. I'm going to start with the lemon yellow, which is my bright yellow. And I'm going to drop the red on top and let it work its way through. So nice. Sometimes it is nice to work slowly and allow areas to dry, because if I did this while this was still wet, it would have just run into each other. And as much as I do like that technique, there are times when you're actually not trying to do that. So very bright, strong colour, so it goes a long way. So again, a lot of this is water. Just plain water, pushing it down. And now for the red. Oh, forgot that bit. I'll do that in a minute. Again, another strong colour. But you can see how that's starting to make that glow under here. Oh, hey, that worked. Back into this bit just to finish off. Again with the yellow. While that's still wet, drop in the red and let it mix on the page. I know they've got tags, but I'm freeing this bird. It's no longer a captive bird, it's free. So now I'm just going to show you how wonderful natural hair feel brush is while I do a wet in wet background. So I will often do this, and I'll use a synthetic brush, and I'm having to reload the brush regularly just because it releases the water so quickly, whereas in a natural hair brush it holds it much longer and allows you to get the water down onto the paper. White paper, that's brilliant because that's done most of the job for me. Don't need to. I just want to make sure that this bird is grounded. Just put him on something.
Was that a flightless bird joke there?
No, it wasn't actually. wasn't, but thank you for pointing that out. Right, okay. Like I say, I'm using the paper behind. Just drop in some of that blue colour. Again, use the same colours in the background as you've used in the foreground, because it just makes everything work together. Feet are bleeding a little bit. But to be honest, once it all dries, I can go back and sharpen up if I wanted to. But not always need to. I think it kind of just adds to the painting. You're painting. It's not a photograph, it's a painting. Therefore, it will have all the quirks of a painting and the materials you've used. Right. Shadow under the bird. Come on, grab it. And that should now work. I want to just do something else. I'm just going to add some red. Just, for me, it's not got enough colour. Maybe it looks like there's been a penguin murder now. But I'll just blend that in. It becomes a bit more purple. I think that's fine. That works for me. But what I want to show you, the reason for doing this is to show you the softness of the brush. And it really does feel just like a natural hairbrush. So this is the Casaneo range. It's a totally synthetic range, but simulates the wonderful, soft, holding possibilities of a natural hairbrush. So I hope you enjoyed that demonstration and introduction to this range, and join me next week for another live demonstration.